Welcome to episode 100 of the Culinary Treasure Podcast. I'm Steven Shomler, your host. This episode features Chef Devin Finigan. She is an incredible chef with an amazing restaurant, Aragosta, on Deer Isle in Maine. And given that this is a very special episode, I wanted to give you a little bit of background before we get into the podcast itself. When I was a young kid, I collected comic books, and I tell you, there's nothing like going into a comic book store and looking through the back issues and finding episode 1 of some comic you've collected that you were so excited to get. I've done that a number of times in my life. And issue 1 is always very important. And then if a comic book happens to make it to issue 100, that's also very important. And so, getting to episode 100 of the Culinary Treasure Podcast is very, very special to me. Thank you to everybody who's been listening along the way and the people that have been come along as we've been growing. So if you do some Googling, you'll discover that when it comes to podcasts, how many episodes do they make it? There's actually a shocking number of podcasts that never make it past episode 1. And probably most of the stats I see, most of the studies say somewhere between 50 and 60% of podcasts never make it past episode 14. Now, some podcasts, they're just short, 6 episodes. That's all they're ever supposed to be, 6 or 10. But there's lots of podcasts, people start them and think they'll do them and they don't finish up. And so I'm just fired up to get to episode 100. And I wanted to make episode 100, given my love of comic books, I wanted to make it as special as episode 1 was for me. Because when I started my culinary podcast back then, it was called the Portland Culinary Podcast, and as time has grown, with episode 69, the Portland Culinary Podcast became the Culinary Treasure Podcast. Same format, same story, same guests, just now I'm blessed to cover the entire planet. I've gone over the globe doing podcast episodes, telling culinary stories, and take such joy and delight in being able to do that. So grateful for the opportunities that I've been given. But episode 1 was incredibly special to me, and I wanted to give you a little insight into that, and then let you know why I picked Chef Devin to be the featured guest for episode 100. So Rick Gencarelli is a chef, a local Portland area chef. He started out with Lardo here in Portland. He was a chef before. You can go listen to episode 1 and check out his story. But in Portland, he opened Lardo, which was first a food cart and then a restaurant. And, of course, now he has Grassa, and then he recently opened Bluto. He's done very, very well for himself. And here's why why I picked him to be the first guest for my first podcast, the guest for episode 1. As many of you know, summer of 2011, I decided to radically change my life, both personally and professionally, and upgrade it. Flash forward to today. Right now it's summer 2022, and for many years I've been living a life that I absolutely love. So grateful for the life I've built. By choice and design, I have 2 professional endeavors and 2 professional pursuits. I am the founder and the editor-in-chief of the Culinary Treasure Network. We are passionate about magnificent meals, soul-satisfying travel, and people behind the places we love. We have podcasts you can listen to, shows you can watch, articles you can read. We have This is Culinary Treasure, which is our food site, and This is Travel Treasure, which is our travel site. And then I'm also the CEO and founder of Spark to Bonfire, where we create resources to help people transform their life from the ordinary to the extraordinary. But I made that decision in summer of 2011, and there was 4 things that inspired me to say, you know what, I'm going to completely change my life. There was 2 books I read prior to summer of 2011. That's a story for another time. For many years prior to summer 2011, I would watch Anthony Bourdain, may he rest in peace, his show No Reservations. And I'll tell you, when he said, I write, I travel, I eat, and I'm hungry for more, it just moved me. That was the 3rd thing that inspired me. And the 4th thing that inspired me was a meal I had in the fall of 2010 at the Lardo food cart prepared by Chef Rick Gencarelli. Man, for a year, I thought about that incredible meal, and finally, in the summer of 2011, said, that's it, I'm going to start writing about food carts, I'm going to change my life and start that out, and that's how I began, was on my food writing journey, food content creation journey, was writing about Portland food carts. My first website was about Portland food carts. The first book I wrote, Portland Food Cart Stories, I covered the Portland food cart scene and told the story of 30 different food cart owners and their journey. I love that I got that start, but it was that meal by Rick Gencarelli that just was so incredible. His porchetta sandwich is amazing. I had just an incredible meal there, and it just stuck with me. So a few years later, when I decided to start a culinary podcast, Rick had to be my first guest, and he did a great job. It was a lot of fun. Speaking of that episode, In honor of episode 100, and there's a connection between episode 1 and episode 100, I went back and I've gussied up the article. Each one of my podcasts has its own standalone website, and then each podcast episode gets its own article. So if you go to culinarystreasurepodcast.com, if you scroll down on the right-hand side is a list of the episodes, and you scroll down to episode 1, Rick Gencarelli, I just recently added a number of photos. There's now 40 photos if you scroll down from some of my many visits to both the Lardo food cart and to the Lardo restaurant. So if you want to see Rick's story, you want to see it in photos, you can go check it out there. Encourage you to listen to the episode as well, because, again, he has an inspiring story. All right, so let's pivot to episode 100. Episode 100 is coming up, and I realized, man, who am I going to pick? What guest do I have, recorded that I want to put out? And it hit me, I've got the perfect guest, Chef Devin Finigan. I went on an 11-day work trip to the coast of Maine for the Culinary Treasure Network, had an incredible time, recorded a number of podcasts, gathered content for lots of articles, filmed a couple different episodes of some of my shows there. And while I was there, I had 4 visits to Aragosta. 4 visits. That's in those 11 days, I had 4 visits to Aragosta. That's how much of an impression it made on me. And by the way, if you want to see all of the Culinary Treasure Network's Maine Coast-centric content, you can type in your browser adventuresonthemainecoast.com. It'll take you right to a page. Just type in your browser www.adventuresonthemainecoast.com. It'll take you to a web page with links to all the content. There's some content there now. And over the next few months, lots more content will be appearing. I think I recorded, 10 different podcasts while I was there. A lot of articles coming, to some really good stuff. This episode with Devin is just the beginning of all of that Maine content. But 4 visits, and on one of those visits, I had one of the best meals of my entire life. It kind of blew me away. It was funny. That very evening, I have fun with Instagram stories, and I put on my Instagram story, I tagged Chef Rick Gencarelli, and I said, hey, this pork, one of the dishes we had that night for dinner was a pork belly dish. And I tagged Rick and said, this pork belly at Aragosta by Chef Devin, it is Rick Gencarelli pork belly, because he is incredible with pork belly. He's incredible with porchetta. He just is an amazing chef. And in my head, I was equating that dish with stuff that Rick did. And it kind of blew me away, this is one of the best meals I've ever had in my life. And so, of course, it hit me, that's what episode 100 should be. It should be the interview I did with the chef who made one of the best meals I've ever had. So I mentioned I had 4 visits to Aragosta during my 11 days I was in Maine. I'm going to tell you briefly about those 4 visits. My first visit actually stayed the night there. They have lodging, Aragosta at Goose Cove. It's an incredible place to stay. Breakfast is included. The breakfast was amazing. Of course, I took a bunch of pictures and enjoyed the space. It's right there on this beautiful cove, basically the Atlantic Ocean. Just an incredible beach, just magnificent. I'll have an article coming out soon. This is Travel Treasure article talking about my travel stay there. It was amazing. The second time I was there was the night I had that dinner, one of the best dinners of my life. Of course, I took a lot of photos that night. The third time I went back is when I actually interviewed Chef Devin and recorded the podcast with her, and I took more photos that day. And then I had an unexpected 4th trip. Things worked out where I could go back, and my plan was to go back one evening, just sit at the bar, chat up Dan. He's an amazing bartender. By the way, if you like old fashions, he made me one of the best old fashions I've ever had in my life. Absolutely incredible. So my 4th visit, I was going to go sit at the bar, maybe have a few just little plates from the restaurant. I wasn't there for dinner or anything, just to spend an hour or so just hanging out and enjoying. Well, I got invited to go back into the kitchen, and I spent 3 hours standing up on my feet in the kitchen, staying out of the way, shooting, doing some filming and taking a bunch of photos. And so, wow, I wish I had done that before I recorded the podcast, because I'd eaten with Chef Devin. I'd eaten a meal that she'd prepared during my second visit there. Third visit, recorded the podcast and told her story, and I just think the world of her. And I didn't think it was possible for my estimation of her to grow any higher. But then that 4th visit, spending 3 hours in the kitchen, watching her work, watching how she conducts business and works with her team, man, my estimation that I didn't think it'd get higher got even higher. Just incredible. It was kind of like the combination of watching a beautiful ballet and kind of everyone working together and these chefs putting all these incredible meals out for the people in the restaurant. But then also, she's like an amazing conductor of an incredible symphony. Just the attention to detail and the way she works with everybody. I'm so grateful for that experience. I've been blessed to be allowed into many kitchens, actually, to take photos and hang out and watch. And I love that every single time. And I tell you that because I gathered all my photos just from those 4 visits to Aragosta, not my whole trip in Maine, just my 4 visits to Aragosta. And I have over 1,800 photos. And so I love taking photos. Every one of my podcast episodes, if you scroll down, you can see photos from the place I visited. And I try to give people a sense of what it looks like. And a lot of people just listen to the podcast, but some people actually go to the website and they look at the photos that accompany it. And I thought, well, for episode 100, I should have 100 photos. We'll end up having 104 photos that you can go and you can look at. You've got pictures of the staff. Staff changes every year, but the staff of the evening that I was there. I've got pictures from the dinner I had. I've got pictures of an incredible cocktail that Dan made me that is just amazing. Just go look at the pictures. Those pictures are stunning. The cocktail is even better. I've got pictures of the property and the main building and the beach and the cove. And then they have they have a deck. There's a beautiful deck you can sit outside and have, depending on the weather, in the evening, or they do Sunday brunch often out on this deck. And then they have this private greenhouse. Now, if you want to know the details of the private greenhouse, you go to the Aragosta Maine website, and the private greenhouse is not on that main website. You have to click book your meal, and then when you click, book a table, when you click that, it opens up another website, and then if you scroll down, there's information about the private greenhouse. This greenhouse, I think it sits about 12 people, and it is beautiful. It's incredible. Man, I would love to go back there with a group of friends and have a meal there and enjoy that experience. I have photos of that. So there's 104 different photos from my various visits during my trip to Maine to Aragosta you can go check out. So I encourage you to go to culinarytreasurepodcast.com, check out episode 1, check out episode 100, and scroll down and see the photos from both. I'm just so grateful. It worked out great for me to have Rick Gencarelli, episode 1, and then to bookend that episode 100, Chef Devin Finigan. Like I said, one of the best meals I've had in my life. So without further ado, let's get started with the Culinary Treasure Podcast, episode 100. Welcome to the Culinary Treasure Podcast. I'm Steven Shomler, your host. You are in for a treat today. We're going to talk about one of the best dining experiences I've ever had in my life. We're here in Maine. As my listeners know, I've been wanting to come to Maine since high school. Had just had some incredible stories. If you want to see all of the Culinary Treasure Network content, be it more culinary podcasts, craft beer podcasts, travel articles, food articles, or any of our shows, go to adventuresonthemaincoast.com. But I am here with Devin. You are the chef that makes Devin Finigan, right?
Yes.
Devin Finigan. A number of years ago, I read a travel magazine, and there was a whole 1/3 page of text, no images, a paragraph, and it said Devin Finigan's going to be opening up her place, and it mentioned here, and I wonder if they're on Instagram, and they were, and that was like 3 years ago. It's like it was before you opened here at this space we're at, and I'm like, I'm coming, and now here I am.
Here you are.
And Aragosta, did I say it right?
Yes, Aragosta means lobster in Italian.
And Goose Cove on Deer Isle. We're right near Stonington.
Yes. Yep, we have a cove, and it's Goose Cove on the map. So this is Aragosta at Goose Cove.
Yeah, just so stunningly beautiful. We'll get into that. But questions to ask everybody in all my podcasts, where were you born?
I was born in Brattleboro, Vermont, and I grew up in Wardsboro, a small little town on top of a mountain.
And where'd you go to high school?
I went to Vermont Academy.
And what's the mascot there?
Wildcat.
And then just because geography people kind of are curious, you spent a few years in college in Georgia, Savannah, Georgia.
Yeah, for photography.
But during the summers, you would come out to Stonington.
Yes, I had I came with one of my sisters who went to Haystack, which is the world-known art school on Deer Isle, and met my husband, and then went to school, and then kept coming back, and then finally decided to move here.
And you moved here to Stonington area.
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of area around here. We're not being too picky about geography, but in 2003, and you started cooking professionally here you've been cooking professionally in this area since 2003.
That's correct, yes. So we're on an island, right? So you go over a bridge to get here, you go onto Little Deer Isle, then Deer Isle, and then Stonington's at the end. Stonington is, the fishing capital of the East Coast for lobster.
Yeah, I think it's one of the largest lobster ports in the United States.
100% would have to agree.
And it's charming. Stonington is not as amazing as Goose Cove, although there are cool boats in the harbor. But I love that little town.
Oh, it's so quaint. And
It needs a dive bar downtown, but other than that, it's pretty amazing.
yeah, well, we got some rowdy fishermen. I don't know about that.
I'm from Portland, Oregon. Man, we have rowdy dive bars there. Those
Yeah.
rowdy hipsters. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
Tell me about where your cooking journey began? Because you
Sure.
obviously, again, I had one of the best dining experiences of my life here Thursday night.
Thank you.
And you obviously, and then the breakfast I had Wednesday morning, I even forget about that. Like the oatmeal with the raspberry Kool-Aid. I mean, I know I love it if I think about it. I think
Sure.
I'd be thinking about those meals for a long time.
Oh, that's so good.
So you're an incredibly gifted chef. But
Thank
where did
you.
your cooking journey begin? What's the foundations of all that?
Well, my father, Kevin, is a chef. And so I grew up with my dad who cooked. My dad was always cooking. My mom we grew up with gardens. We had, a cow. I grew up thinking that this must be how everyone grows up, planting things, harvesting, milking the cow. And my mom's also a pescatarian. So when my dad was cooking, we grew up just eating vegetables. And I was raised to eat what was on your plate. And I always had an interest in cooking. And I remember cooking for my little sister, Leah, burritos when I was like 8. I love burritos. So I was always cooking pancakes. But then when I was in high school, I started cooking in the restaurant with my dad, as I was their dishwasher. But then once you show an interest in a kitchen, in food, chefs love that. So I was peeling shrimp, and I remember they let me batter these little calamari, and I got to taste everything, and it was so fun. So yeah, I feel like I was introduced to just real food ever since I was born. And now I'm just so fortunate for that. And that's how I'm raising my girls, and they love cooking with mama in the kitchen, which is so cute.
What a legacy your parents gave you.
I know.
Yeah. Because I'm looking out at the water, you're looking away from the water, and just to have this be where your kids grow up, this incredible view and the incredible food in my world, in my head, where that came from is the legacy of cooking your parents gave you. That's what led to all of this. Lots and lots of other things.
Yes.
But if you didn't have that foundation, you may not be here.
I agree. Yes. it was funny when I told my dad I wanted to open a restaurant, my first location, he pretty much did everything he could to talk me right out of it. But I didn't listen. So here I am.
Yeah. Being a chef and running your own restaurant is one of the hardest things that you can do. It's absolutely ridiculous how tough it is.
It's really tough. And yeah, it's definitely, it's a lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice.
So 2003, you start cooking at different places. You were at the Lookout at one point in Brooklyn with an I, which is around here. I've heard
down
the local
5 Point. It's
Yeah.
an incredible piece of property.
Okay, I have to check it out. I've heard a lot of people say Brooklyn with an I.
Yep.
And every time I hear the word Brooklyn in my head, I finish with an I. I think that's going to stick with me for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
Even if they're talking about New York, I'll be hear that. But then you had a really important part of your journey. Sarah, Blue Hill Inn, which is a place people can stay in Blue Hill.
Yes.
She had you put together the restaurant at Blue Hill Inn.
Yes, she approached me one cold spring day and asked me to go to lunch. And she said, "We want you to open a restaurant in our inn." And Sarah had owned the inn then for almost, I think, 10 years. And so I was excited. She was pretty much giving me free range on what I wanted to present as a menu. I could use farmers, and I really could do whatever I wanted. And I hadn't had that freedom in the kitchen ever. And I was so excited. So we opened a restaurant inside the inn, which is, there's still the Blue Hill Inn. And they had a little dining room. And it wasn't anything that I ever pictured for me. It was like carpet in the dining room, but we made it as beautiful as possible, and we were busy. And there was only maybe 30 seats, and it was an a la carte menu, but it was fun. And there was, I had a grill outside the kitchen door. I had to run outside to cook my steaks, and I learned a lot. And it was fun. And to just have that support system of Sarah and her partner, Julie Jo, it was fun. I had a blast.
And I suspect that you built a lot of relationship with local farmers that served you to this day.
I surely have. I've been using these farms now for the last 12 years. And I know them. I know their kids. I know, what they like to drink when they come here or what they're allergic to. And I feel comfortable with all of them that I can say, hey, this kale it's not as good as it was last year. What's going on? Do you have a bug? Or, I sit down with multiple farmers in the spring, usually over a nice bottle of wine, and talk about what I want them to grow. And how lucky is that? I mean, that's like a dream.
Yeah. And I didn't realize, if I thought about it, I would have, but how rural it feels. Mm-hmm. We drove out Saturday afternoon, long happy 2 days, and like, okay, we're done. And we just drove out through Harborside, and such beautiful, and so many farms, and so beautiful.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And a lot of younger people are moving to this area and starting farms, which is great.
Yeah, Maine is the only state in the United States where the average age of the farmer is going down.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yep.
Phenomenal. Okay, so in 2013, you open Aragosta up in downtown Stonington.
Yeah.
But you have traveled the world and a lot of the United States, honing your culinary skills.
Yes.
By choice. You've gone to a lot of cool places: Spain, New York, California.
Yeah.
Talk to me about. Speaking of that. One of the places you did that was Simple Thread.
Single Thread.
Single Thread in Healdsburg.
In Healdsburg, yes. I went out. I have always made a point to do internships at restaurants to just be inspired and see what, other people are doing, because that's the only way you can become better is you need to keep learning. And so I asked if I could come out, and I owned a business, and they're probably in their mind thinking, why does this chef want to come and work with us? She has a restaurant. But I pitched to them, I want to keep learning. And it was a Japanese influence restaurant, which that was new to me. And it was so amazing, the experience. The chef Kyle is just completely grounded. It's a 3-star Michelin restaurant, huge team. I mean, there's probably like 40 chefs in the kitchen, but using ingredients that, I wasn't familiar with or I had seen, but it wasn't in my everyday cooking. Now, dashi, always have it. All the flavors that I was introduced there really inspired me. And that's where I saw their wood-burning hearth, and they cooked everything over there. So when I bought this location that we're in now at Goose Cove, I was on eBay and I found a used hearth. They're from Washington. They're built out there, but I found one in Philadelphia used, and I bought it, and it's so exciting. Yeah.
So 2013 is when you opened Aragosta in downtown Stonington. Little small place, but just what made that possible is you were taking one of your trips to make yourself a better chef, which is so inspiring to me. People that sharpen their saw. You were headed to Spain, and you're at the airport. And what happened?
So I was headed to Spain to go cook with one of the rising female chefs in Spain, Macarena Di Castro, who owns Jardin in Marlaca, which is off the coast of Barcelona. And so I'm in Logan, right, in the airport. I'm getting a coffee at Starbucks, and I start talking to this gentleman beside me. He tells me he's going to Stonington, Maine. And so I was like, well, wait a minute, that's where I live. What are you doing up there? And he explains that he's going to rent his building that is a restaurant, and he's putting it up for lease. And so I quickly sit down with this man and have a 45-minute conversation about, how can I get in this space? Even though I was cooking at the Blue Hill Inn, I knew I always wanted my own thing. And Sarah was 100% behind that. So I go to Spain and go cook for 3 weeks, and I come back. I tour the kitchen, I tour the restaurant, sign the lease. 4 weeks later, I open Aragosta.
And so you're on the waterfront down there. Must have been a smaller space.
It was. It's on Main Street, and so the dining room is at street level, and sat 35, and that's that's pre-COVID. That's tiny. And then downstairs was the kitchen, and then it went onto the deck, and we sat maybe 70 on the deck. And I learned a lot that year.
And the food for the main level had to go upstairs all the time.
Yes.
Oh, those poor servers.
And pretty much I say it with all my servers, this is Aragosta weight loss plan. You're guaranteed to lose at least 15 pounds, which is accurate.
I don't know if that would happen for me. I mean, I would work like crazy because your servers are wonderful. But man, being around your food would be really dangerous for me. I don't know. I would probably get fired for snitching.
Well, we do a staff meal, and we have to feed everyone.
Yeah, that would be bad for me. Your food's too good.
Oh, thank you.
I'd be like, I need 3 staff meals. And so you were there for about 6 years.
6 years.
And then January 10, 2019, you get this ethereal space that we're in now that I'm sitting in, and it's hard. I'll put photos up if people go to Culinary Treasure Podcast.com. I'll have photos up, and then I'll have This is Culinary Treasure article. People can, if you want to go look at that, I'll have beautiful photos, some great video. But there's this little bay that's Cove that's beautiful, and this beach, and you're sitting here in this restaurant looking out at it, and then there's people can stay here. You've got
we have 10 cabins, 4 suites. It's 21.9 acres, the property. We have our own beach. We have 4 moorings. Sometime in the summer when we serve Sunday brunch on the deck, looks like the French Riviera out there. So many people come by boat, which is awesome. I feel like I'm living a dream. I'm living a chef's dream 100%, but also to be able to accommodate guests and stay here is really a win-win.
And if you're listening to this podcast, you have the means and capacity, you owe it to yourself to come to Stonington. You should stay I stayed here, Tuesday, Wednesday, and you need to stay here. If I'd known, I would have scheduled differently, and I probably next time I'll stay 2 nights and have the tasting menu 2 nights in a row because the food is that good. I fell in love with Deer Isle. There's a lot of amazing things to do here, but this is kind of like a gem among gems. I mean, this is a place you need to come stay here at Aragosta. I can't overemphasize enough. You need to stay here. You need to eat here. Not that there isn't other fun things to see. Just 44 North Coffee, for example. But we had that
love
on
those ladies.
I did a podcast with Melissa, and it was amazing. And Royal Tar, it's changed my life.
Yes.
I got a whole
and
bunch
the whole
to take
story. I'm sure you've heard it.
Oh yeah, phenomenal.
Yes.
So there's a lot of good things here, but you really need to come to here. But as beautiful and stunning as it is now, January 10th, 2019, there's a dilapidated dive bar building here.
Yes.
Right? Am I right?
You are right. It was pretty much like a very neglected space and overlooked cabins. I don't even know if they were ever being rented for years. And we went right to work on doing renovation, and I had a budget that I, had to stick to, and things that needed to happen that aren't so exciting, like electrical, fire system, plumbing, all that stuff. So fun, but it eats a budget real quick. But it needed to get done.
And from January 10th, 2019 to June 20th, 2019, you opened June 20th for food service.
For food service.
And for people to stay in cabins and suites.
Yep.
That's amazing.
It's crazy. We, those big dumpsters, like the biggest dumpsters you could get, I think we went through 8 of them. It was nuts. And it was such a community, the community was so involved. As many artisans that I could use on the project I used, people were coming to just help because they wanted to see what we were doing. So many people would drive down here and just want to talk or hadn't been here, and because it was so, neglected, that they were just thanking me for being here. And that still hasn't stopped. We have guests that, maybe stayed here when they were 2, that they hadn't been back. And, it was really an amazing thing for the community to bring this back to where it should. Because back in the day, in the 80s, Goose Cove was, what you see. And it was thriving. But then it kind of went downhill after that. Until we're taking her back up.
Yeah, I know I have a lot of friends that are food and travel writers that listen to my podcast or some of my adventures, and I don't care if you're a food writer or a travel writer, you need to get here. There's an incredible story. I'm looking right now. Look, there's this beautiful schooner out there.
Yeah.
Out in the distance. It's just kind of mind blowing.
It surely is.
Yeah. So you success 2019 summer. Everything's good.
Yeah.
You're doing good. And then all of us, the holy hell of 2019 COVID.
Yeah.
But there was even that was a tough time for everyone. One in my world, in my crazy head, silver lining for you guys is that led to you putting in. I didn't know before. I only know what I saw this year, 2020. But this incredible, beautiful deck out front. You expanded the deck because of COVID.
We expanded the deck and put an outdoor kitchen in with a wood burning oven. Yes, so I put on 40 by 60. That lower part of the deck is because of spacing, and put the outdoor kitchen, and then the dining room in here is big, but people with social distancing, everyone wants to eat outside. And then with our cabins, because they're private, that was great. People would come and have their own private space, little kitchenettes, and sometimes we would see them and they would come to breakfast or come to dinner. Other times people would just keep to themselves and just be thankful that they were getting out of the city.
Yeah, my wife and I, COVID hit. I was in Greece when COVID hit. I was sent home from a wine writer's trip in Greece. It's heartbreaking. And we were home for months. And then finally, like in late summer, we went to a cabin up in the Columbia Gorge. We did the same thing we did at home, but it was just to escape. And we were so grateful to get to go stay in this cabin. And I'm sure a lot of people came here. You were just giving them a sense of sanity.
Right.
Even the people that come to breakfast, they had the beautiful travel experience just staying here.
Yep. And people were so thankful. They hadn't been anywhere since COVID happened. We had so many people last year say that was the first time they were out to dine since COVID. We still have some people say that to us.
So for a travel experience, you're open roughly May till the end of October for people to stay here.
Yeah.
And then if you stay here, there's cabins and there's suites. And then included with what you get is you get to come here and have an incredible, obnoxious, amazing breakfast.
Yes. So great. And most everyone wants to eat on the deck, weather permitting, for the morning. And we offer, an egg dish or a sweet and savory fruit. And then, coffee from 44.
Yeah. And because it's what's available then, because you're really hyper-local. Stuff on the island is what's available. But like we had... Wednesday morning, we had oatmeal with this incredible raspberry coulis, and I think I remember toasted hazelnuts and toasted pistachios. That was an incredible breakfast. And then there was a frittata that was just a black bean frittata that was just divine.
That sounds great.
Your breakfast here is so good.
Oh, good. I like when they, I'm like a sucker for any Eggs Benedict, for sure.
So people that travel experience, that they can come, they get breakfast as part of what they get.
Yep, it's in the rate, so breakfast is included.
And then your deck is roughly 4th of July weekend to roughly Labor Day.
Yep.
And then people can eat out on the deck because your tasting menu is 1 or 2 seatings a night.
Yep.
Big picture, check the website and see. But then you also, during that rough same time, 4th of July weekend through roughly Labor Day, you also do a happy hour out there on the deck.
Yes. We did that this year primarily because I don't really want guests to have to travel off property to go find food. And it was a great thing for the local community too. It was 4 to 8, and I tell you, at 3:45 there was already a line.
I would stand in line for an hour to sit out there, and then to have Dan and Susanna's cocktails.
Yes,
oh my goodness,
know
those were incredible.
Oh, amazing. Yes, and the staff that I have, they're so great. I couldn't do it without them, and I'm lucky to have all of them.
No, speaking of your staff, that's part of what made the experience so amazing. Is there was these wonderful dishes that coming out, like really one of the best meals I've ever had in my life, for real. But then the staff, Molly was phenomenal, Eli was phenomenal, Matt was phenomenal, Alvaro, I think I'm saying his name right.
Alvaro.
He was, and it was really quite beautiful watching in a ballet, because in some places, there's a lot of staff that are territorial. Those are my tables. Those are my tables. And, Molly was our main server, but then Eli would come and help or clear stuff, and Alvaro would come and explain dishes, and Matt would stop by and explain courses. And it was really, I was convinced you must be an amazing leader, and
thank you.
Somehow of a caring, nurturing person to have this kind of openness and these amazing people. Because if you were a knucklehead, those amazing people wouldn't be here. So really, it was also the staff that made the experience so incredible.
Well, I am a big advocate for working as a team. The wait staff needs to work as a team. The kitchen needs to work as a team, but we also have to work all together as a team. And that means that we aren't territorial. We will do whatever is needed to make sure that the guest is experiencing the Aragosta how I want it to be presented. And I had one waitress this summer. They refer to me as Mama Duck, and they're all my ducklings, which is cute.
That is beautiful.
I know. I miss those girls, but a lot of my staff have worked for me since the first restaurant. And I think that you just have to treat people with kindness and let them have their opinion and listen and be willing to change if need be,
So July and August, happy hour out on the deck is small plates and amazing cocktails.
Yes.
And then if people come for the dining experience, they'll be, and I'm talking big pictures so that, if people, things change, there's flexibility. Sometimes people think on the podcast the way it always is, but 1 or 2 tasting menu seatings where they, 5 o'clock and or 8 o'clock. And then they're going to get roughly 8 to 10 dishes come through, 8 to 10, smaller bites. That's the amazing thing is I didn't get overfed, but I got a lot of food.
Nice.
And that's hard balance to pull off with the tasting menu. Some tasting menus, you're all done. The food was amazing, but you're ready for a burger.
Right.
And this was not that way at all.
That's great. That's great to hear.
And people are going to get something different whether they're here in July or October. The menu's going to change. But there's some things that you do that are, I bet anything, you probably always have an amazing dessert.
Always have an amazing dessert. My pastry chef, Liam, is super talented. And pretty much we talk about dessert, like today's Monday. We'll talk today about what we'll present on this following week for dessert. And I know that I just got a text from one of my farmers that they have all these beautiful plums. So I'm thinking I don't know, maybe like a plum crostata with... so we go back and forth. Liam, he's a pastry chef that doesn't like sweets, so it's interesting. But we just use what the list is from the farmer, and that's how I base any of my cooking.
And so many little things. We got a sorbet to cleanse our palate, but it was served with this drink in this beautiful red glass.
Yes.
That was absolutely
so pretty.
Absolutely phenomenal. And just that little attention to detail where the glass, and I don't know if it was intentional, but the glass matched the sorbet.
Yes.
And the sorbet was phenomenal. And I know I'm skipping to the end of the meal, but that little glass, it was so hard for me not to steal
aperitif.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I couldn't have gotten it home on my luggage. I want to break it, but it was so charming.
Oh.
And then when toward the end, I think it was the last thing we had, was 2 red wine truffles served with this incredible box. And the box is crafted by a local craftsman who also does lobstering right here on the island.
Yes. Yes, Aaron Bolger. He also built one of my tables and my saloon doors to the kitchens, but he's a talented woodworker. And that was, he made those boxes last year for me. I wanted it to be the last little surprise. And then I had these ideas of getting fake birds' nests and dressing them up with the moss that's around the property, and and people love it.
Yeah, and so it's this beautiful box, and then there's a literal bird's nest.
Yes.
It looks like a bird's nest. So with these 2 truffles, and that attention to detail, the truffles were fantastic.
Great.
But then having that whole experience, and then I was at 44 North Friday, and I met Aaron.
Yes.
And it was so great to meet him, and oh, you made the boxes.
Yep. And he's super talented, and that is... that we're fortunate on this island. There's so many talented people. I mean, there's talented people all over the world, but I feel like there's quite a big chunk of them in Deer Isle and Stonington, which is awesome.
And have you heard of the Roman emperors? The idea that you'd peel your grapes. When I was a kid, we joked, I don't know where we got it. Very young, someone needed to peel my grapes. But now I think I'm ruined because now I want people to peel my tomatoes. Because the Arctic char course,
yes,
with everything with it, and then this little, I'm like, why are they peeling the tomato? This is interesting. The Arctic char was cooked perfectly and
thank you.
phenomenal. But then this peeled tomato,
Yeah.
that was really, really interesting.
Yeah. It's it's a tedious little project in the kitchen, but it's so stunning. And probably like you've never had a peeled tomato.
Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah, so it's another way to highlight that ingredient. So on that dish, the Arctic char, I did a roasted cherry tomato kind of a vinaigrette sauce. We had the miso. There was from peeling those tomatoes, we dehydrate the skin and then make a dust. So there was the tomato dust, then the golden or the sun gold tomatoes, and then that peeled cherry tomato, all to highlight like we are in abundance of tomatoes right now.
Yeah, exactly. And so what are some of the farms? Because the other thing was the plates. I learned through the course of the meal, thanks to Molly, who's like just a font of wisdom and joy. Yellow Birch Farms.
Yeah.
You get a lot of vegetables there, but then Missy did the plates.
Yes, Missy Green. She's a very talented potter. Shows in the Smithsonian. Also, her son Abraham has worked for me for years. Missy, I approached her when I bought the property because I really wanted to have beautiful dishware, and she is still making dishes for me. I mean, she runs a farm too, so it's not like she can't just focus on dishes.
Right.
But we collaborated on glazes and shapes, and they are pieces of art. And it's a sad day in a kitchen when one breaks. I'll just say that.
But then you get a lot of vegetables from this morning. Before we started this podcast, you were there picking up kale.
Yeah, I was actually helping harvest the kale. It's great that you can just text a farmer and say, "Hey, we ran out of all this last night. I need to come," and then they hand me a coffee and we walk around. And there's like the goats baying at us. But Yellow Birch Farm, I use Starbird Farm, Anna down on the island in Stonington. One of the big ones, Four Season Farm over in Cape Rozier in Brooksville. So Elliot Coleman.
I drove by them on Saturday, drove by the sign.
Yes. They have an incredible farmer's market in the summer on Saturdays, which is like crazy. But now Clara Coleman, Elliot's daughter, has taken over the farm and is doing great. Fine Line Farm, dear friends of mine, Sarah and Hubert, they're down in Searsmont. So they grow all my specialty things, micro head lettuces and any of the peppers and some of those cherry tomatoes. And pretty much twice a week, I get 4 different lists from my farmers. And that's how I base my menu. And it's really fun. And not to mention that all the squash that you had on the menu, that's all from my property. That was just from the compost of last year. I didn't plant any of that. They just all self-seeded, which is so fun. So we compost. We have a pig that we're feeding. And yeah, I mean, I was a master gardener for years. I used to garden and then go cook at the Blue Hill Inn. So if I'm not in the kitchen cooking, I guarantee I'm doing something in the garden.
Yeah, when I come back next year, I'm at least going to have, because I have a heart for farmers and a number of podcasts with farmers that often don't get celebrated. And I'm gonna have to sit down with some of those people next year and capture their story. But there's a Scallop Farm.
Yes. So the Scallop Farm. So out the dining room window, you can see 2 lighthouses here. Mark Island, which is the one that you hear. And then there's Saddleback, which is way down by the 3 Mile line. But over by that Mark Island is the Scallop Farm, Pembe Scallops. And that's a father and son, Marsden and Bobby, who I've known ever since I've moved here, brewer. And they went to Japan and did all this research and learned the aquaculture of raising scallops. And the amazing thing about scallops is they're grown on these ropes with these like kind of net cages, and they sink. So unlike the lobster buoys that are like sprinkled everywhere, you would have no idea other than 2 buoys at each end that these scallops are growing underwater. And they're sustainable. They're filtering the water. They're filtering all the little organisms. And it's sustainable. It's good for the ocean. And they're delicious.
And I worked really hard. It didn't work out, and that it was very okay. But next time I'm going to get Long Cove Sea Farms.
Yeah, that's Abby Barrows, Long Cove Sea Farm. And she is out of Long Cove here in Deer Isle, and she's one of my friends and a talented aquaculture farmer. So things on the menu that don't go away. I'll always have oysters. I always have the scallops. Got to have some fish. Got to have lobster because we're in Maine, as well as the name of my restaurant is Lobster Aragosta.
And so the lobster dish may change occasionally. We happen to have an incredible lobster pasta dish.
Yes.
Really, really good. But it may be a different lobster dish, but you plan to always have, most of the time, a lobster dish here.
My signature dish has always been the lobster ravioli, which has been, changed from the tortellini to the casoncelli, and now we're doing the tagliatelle. Same sauce, lobster, gremolata. But I feel like there could possibly be a riot if it's not on the menu.
Yeah, that tagliatelle was incredible. And those oysters, they were stunning.
Sweet.
And then the, was it grilled or fried?
So one was fried in a nori tempura with, I think it was, the yuzu, Tipico aioli on top, and then wood fired because we cook over live fire. So I had gotten Fine Line Farm corn, where I made a corn and pepper topping, and then over the wood fire, so it kind of infuses a little smokiness. That was one fried, one wood fired. Changes all the time.
Yeah, so that fried one, I loved both of them, but that fried one, I want Culmination's one of my favorite breweries in Portland, Oregon. I wanted one of their IPAs, or I suppose I could go with a Marshall Wharf Brewing Cant Dog Double IPA.
Yeah, Cant Dog.
With about 30 of those and a football game, and I would maybe explode, but I would be so happy. That's how good those were.
Sweet. Love that.
And then caviar can be really well done.
Mm-hmm.
But you did one thing that I've never had with caviar that took it to me to like the next level. And maybe I've just missed out. Maybe everybody does it and I'm a knucklehead. But first, the caviar was phenomenal.
Great.
One of the prettiest photos I've ever had
wow.
of caviar. So stunning. But the fried polenta.
The fried polenta, yeah.
That fried polenta, you had that with the caviar,
our house
and
creme
the chives,
fraiche, yeah,
and the creme fraiche. It was like a revelation, and I could have just had a meal. If you'd given me a little green salad and the fried polenta, I'd have been happy.
Nice.
I don't know what you did to make that polenta so perfect.
It's called cream and cheese.
Okay.
We cook the polenta. We finish it with heavy cream and add a good portion of Parmesan grated into it. And then we set it flat on a sheet tray and let it chill. And then we cut out the shapes and then we toss them in a little cornstarch and then fry them.
Yeah, your skill set and your people are impressive because you do two very difficult things. It's hard to run an inn or a hotel or a place for people to stay. That's one
Right.
skill set. And then a restaurant's a different skill set. And you're doing both enterprises. I know it's one business, but it's two different things that are going on.
Yes, and raising two little girls.
Yeah, and you pull that all off, and it's really kind of mind-boggling.
Oh, thanks.
So just really, I probably have said amazing, but I just can't get over how incredible it is. But you do provide great hospitality for people looking for travel experience, but your cooking's amazing. You love to cook, don't you?
I do. I cook with my heart, and I pretty much try to live my life with my heart, but it surely comes through I want it to come through on my plates. Because I cook so much and such long hours to be away from my children, I need to be doing something that I love. And this is exactly what I want to be doing. And we're so fortunate to be where we are. I mean, the ocean is my backyard. All these fishermen that, bust their ass out there, I want to support them. All the farmers that likewise, I want to support them. And I want the diner to experience the love and the hard work and all of it and just, eat it. Eat it through the eyes of, the coast of Maine.
Well, and you have what, through my craft beer journey and world, you have the fifth ingredient. And beer is water, yeast, hops, and malt. And those are the four ingredients primarily that are beer. But the fifth ingredient, if the brewer uses it, you can taste it, and that's love.
Yes.
And so all of your dishes, had the fifth ingredient, because there's no way that food tasted that good without your care and your it's not just a job.
It's not.
I think it's your vocation. It's your calling. I
It
really
is.
think that. And then there had to be love. I mean, I've been in many working kitchens, staying out of the way, trying to take photos.
Oh, you should come and visit us. We have a good time in the kitchen.
I guarantee you there would be, because some kitchens professional kitchens, you take your photos and leave because like it's tense.
Oh, it's not tense. I mean, my poor chefs that cook next to me, I'm just constantly singing random bits of songs. They are always like, oh my God, Dev, no Christmas carols yet. Okay, it's July.
And I'm not saying it's not hard work and there aren't intense times in there. I guarantee you there are.
100%.
But I bet the spirit of it is we're doing amazing things, having a great time, working our butts off and loving it.
Yes, it's exactly that.
Because
And
that came through in the food.
thank you. Thank you. I mean, we spend all day prepping for those 2 seatings, right? And I try to remind the wait staff, who come, at 2:00 to set up the dining room and get ready that, hey, we've been here since, 9, prepping all day. And, be mindful of that. Maybe when you get here, offer us coffee. Hey, I'll start with one. But yeah.
So I think we've come to the end of everything I want to cover.
Great.
I just want to encourage people to come for the travel experience, stay here. Oh, the one thing I want to mention. Okay, so we get here Tuesday night. You aren't open for service. Lots of places aren't. We head out. We get a bite to eat. We come back, and it's evening, and a little bit of fog has rolled in. There's a few clouds. There's a full moon coming up off to my left as I'm standing at prayer window to my left. And then for the first time in my life, I kind of really notice and hear this foghorn.
Yeah, Mark Island.
Yeah, and it is so beautiful, and it kind of just lulled me to sleep, and the smell of the ocean, and I think I need to get like a foghorn recording now so I can sleep at home.
It's so funny. I don't even hear it anymore. I thought when I bought the property that it would kind of drive me crazy. I don't hear it. And then randomly when I do, I'm like, oh yeah, that's still going. Okay.
Well, Devin, it's been a joy to have
Thank
you. Hats off to all you've put together, and I wish you many, many years of success here.
Oh, thank you so much.
I don't know if the James Beard people have been by here yet.
I bet I was nominated, and then COVID happened, so hopefully they're coming back.
Yeah, they need to come back,
Yeah.
and then those Michelin people need to get here.
Oh, jeez. I don't even know how to go about that. but-
We'll just. I know how to you just put it out into the universe. So I'm going to put it out into the
Thanks.
universe because I think you're worthy of those things.
Thank
and I've
you.
eaten a lot of meals in a lot of parts of the world, and you have that kind of quality going on.
Thank you. That's such a compliment.
It's not just the food, but it's the entire dining experience. So they just need to get here and get things taken care of.
That's right.
So I wish you all the best.
Well,
thank you so much for
My
joining us on the
pleasure.
podcast.
All right.
Cheers.